Now, however, despite exposing irregularities in some polling stations across the country, KNCHR chairperson Ann Ngugi was cagey when asked to give a verdict of whether the concluded polls passed the integrity test, and instead wants the public to await the Supreme Court's report on the polls.
As Kenya National Commission, we too are going to wait for that ruling. Everybody is waiting for it. So let us give that chance so that within 2 weeks, which will be by next week, Saturday, we should have that. And people will be very clear in terms of when they give an opinion, it will be based on having read the judgment. And it will be conclusive in that everyone will, of course, have their own interpretation if they so please, but they will be more clear. And people will be able to say conclusively whether the elections were free and fair. The IEBC should actually allow an audit which will look into all those things, will look into all that equipment and allow people with the technical expertise to be able to tell us and to interpret for us. For me, I think the demand for an audit is one of the ways that Kenyans will be able to move forward. And further, we as Kenyans will also ensure next time, the next 5 years, when we do hold our general elections, there are lessons learned that in the event that we are thinking of buying equipment, let us start thinking and planning about it maybe 2 years before, and pre-testing and knowing what they can do and what they cannot do.
You just needed to show up with your ID card, and that was sufficient to allow you to vote. So that was at one polling station. But these things all speak to whether in conducting these elections we really respected what Article 38 of the Constitution is speaking about.
Well, if you're not happy with the way the parastatals in the country are run, there might be hope yet for you, because there are plans to get all parastatal heads vetted in order to restore public confidence in the institutions. Now, Lugari Member of Parliament Ayub Savula says that the move will be in motion, he will move the motion in Parliament to have all parastatal chiefs undergo fresh vetting to weed out corrupt and non-performing executives from the system.
Now, Savula says it will be prudent for parastatal bosses to be vetted like other state officers, so that clean teams that have public confidence are leading these institutions.
I think in the best interest of this country to have a clean team in place to facilitate functioning of the government, because parastatal are allocated funds, public resources. Parliament is an oversight body that oversees smooth operation of the government, a smooth allocation of money to various functional projects of the government. Parastatal chiefs are the ones mandated to implement projects on behalf of the government. So it will be prudent to have all parastatal chiefs and board chairmen go through a vetting process to eliminate the corrupt ones and to eliminate the incompetent ones. Same way the cabinet secretaries and principal secretaries will go the same process.
Now, in the second part of our special series Cabinet Agenda, we focused on security, a daunting task for the incoming government, whose in-tray is overflowing with urgent matters to attend to, ranging from MRC at the coast to escalating crime in and around our towns and cities.
Well, internal security ministers in the past have been caught between containing insecurity and also maintaining their political ambitions. Well, KTN's Dennis Onsarigo looks at the position of the Cabinet Secretary in charge of security.
Incidences.
In the past, the internal security docket has been referred to as one of the most powerful positions in government, after that of the Ministry of Finance. A minister in charge of internal security and provincial administration has immense powers, both as a politician and as a cabinet minister. The man or woman who flies the flag of an internal security minister receives direct briefings from the provincial commissioners every morning, has access to national security matters, and the office of the police commissioner fell directly under him. But the constitution has largely scaled down the powers of the internal security minister, and the man or woman to be appointed to that all-important docket will assume a new name and a new role. The minister will be referred to as the cabinet secretary in charge of police services and will give policy direction to the Inspector General Police, the man who heads the National Police Service. Times are gone when a minister issued orders to the Inspector General Police on matters to do with investigations, arrests, employment, promotion or suspension of any police officer. An ideal cabinet secretary in charge of police services should no doubt be a man or woman who understands the policing needs of the 80,000 strong police force. Unlike other cabinet secretaries, the docket for the new cabinet secretary in charge of police services will be inheriting an in-tray full of pressing issues. The Al-Shabaab terror organization continues to make its presence felt days before a new government gets in the office. The Mombasa Republican Council, despite its senior members behind bars, continue reigning terror in the coastal region. Poor pay, lack of proper housing and a culture of corruption will no doubt be a daunting undertaking for the new cabinet secretary, who assumes an office that defines the heartbeat of a nation and a government. The cabinet secretary, according to observers, will be a man or woman who believes in the principle that security agencies do not exist to oppress those it is meant to serve. And with the ongoing wrangles over the structures of the provincial administration in the newly created devolved government, the cabinet secretary will find it challenging to implement government orders at some levels of the county.
Now, the next story is really worrying as floods continue to wreak havoc in parts of the country. Now, learning in several schools in Samburu, schools has been paralyzed by the ongoing rains. Rivers in that region are overflowing, and as a result, majority of the children cannot access their schools, and some schools are opting to postpone exams. Hope is, however, rife that the new county government will bring a change to the perennial problems in that area. Now, here is the story with Linda Ogutu.
For days now, the ongoing rains have crippled activities of residents in Loikas in Samburu. But the most affected are the children who attend Loikas Primary School. The one river they have to cross on their way to school is overflowing, and when it overflows, it becomes extremely dangerous to cross. And so for days, they have been unable to attend classes.
Today we were to have exams starting today for the closure of the first term. But we made the river swollen. Most of the teachers and students and even some parents were trying to assist these young children to cross over to Loikas Primary School.
Parents here say they hope they will not have to deal with the same problem every year.
Wakubwa yetu yule ameingia kiti, tunataka tusaidie sisi sana, kwa sababu tumeumia kabisa. Kama ulisema kura fulani itafanya kazi, tunataka hiyo kura leo ifanye kazi katika Loikas.
Residents say the river has claimed several lives of school children and the locals as well over the years.
This has become a persistent problem for so many times. I think I've been in the press trying to fight for a bridge here. So we're appealing again to especially the new elected leaders in Samburu County, in particular the governor, to do something as a priority to make this school have a bridge. Thank you.
And even as they lamented, it's clear that the leaders in Samburu County have their work cut out for them just weeks after being sworn in.
5 thugs were last night gunned down by police in the Ruaraka area of Nairobi after police foiled an attempt to rob a supermarket in the area. Now, the 5 were trailed by police from flying squad following a tip-off that the gang was planning to commit a robbery in the region. Police opened fire after they defied orders to surrender. Now, witnesses say police pursued the suspects in a chase and then killed them as they escaped on foot.
We had information about a 5-man gang who are intending to rob a mini Plies supermarket, which is just within Ngurukora area in Ruaraka. Our officers got a tip of it and they made a follow-up on catching up with them. They were challenged to stop And because they were harmed, they could not give in history. That's when they started firing, on realizing that they were officers who are tracing them. They started running away shooting, and they shot several cartridges of 9mm. That is, they were using a Seska pistol. In one incident, because they were running away, they managed one at the first, then 3. The other one ran away with a Brotherhood. He was pursued, and later on, after about 40 minutes, he was also fatally injured. In total, we recovered 12 spent cartridges, 1 live ammunition, 2 knives, you have seen them, and a Seska.
If you're sitting in the house and you're not watching KTN or listening to Radio Maisha, then you should log on to www.standardmedia.co.ke. I'll tell you why. Because it was ranked the most popular local website in Kenya. And that's according to the global site ranking alexa.com. Now the site, again, www.standardmedia.co.ke, comes after world #1 social networking site Facebook.com and #1 search engine Google.com, YouTube.com, Google.co.ke, and then also Yahoo.com. Other local sites which of course come after the Standard Group site are Nation, Capital FM, also Kenya Post, which was number 13, OLX Kenya at number 15, and Ghafla at number 21. Also featuring a mobile service operator Orange at number 23, the Kenya Electoral Body IEBC at 26, the Standard Group, if you remember, recently revamped its online portal. If you haven't been, that's what it looks like, what you're seeing on your screen, and has in the recent months seen the website become one of the top most visited local websites by Kenyans, and at times being the most viewed website in the country. Standdigital.co.ke with Nation.co.ke have been recording the highest number of hits. Now the website by the 2 rival media houses have been alternating as the top 2 most popular sites with local internet users. www.standardmedia.co.ke. And if there's a person who would know how these rankings are done, it's Joy Chelagach. She's part of our digital team. Thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you, Edith.
So how do they rank these websites, and what did we do so well that we are top locally?
Well, basically what they do is they rank websites according to the number of people who visit the site. So what actually happens is the way you brand your site, the material that you have on your site, that's what places you at the top. And what Standard Media has been doing is that we have been ensuring that we have news first, we have the best news, and then we also have a variety of news. So an 18-year-old can log on to our site and read about Pulse and find out all that Red Sun is doing or Nameless is doing and all those other celebrities. A 50-year-old guy can come and find out what is Raila's next move in politics, what is Uhuru planning for the country. So diversity and timely news, that's what Standard Media has been doing.
Okay, a lot of people who I know say that the problem with news websites is it's a regurgitation of what's in the newspapers, what's on TV. How do you keep the content fresh?
We keep the content fresh by reporting news as it happens, because you will not, the same story you read on Standard Digital right now as the news happens is not the same story you read in the paper. We'll keep you, updated. As the story continues to evolve, we continue to add, even if it's a line or 2. That's what makes it different. Also, another thing that Standard Digital does is we have global partners whom we partner with. So what you find in the paper may not be the same thing that you have on Reuters or CNN, and we'll have it and we'll Kenyanize it. That's what keeps us at the top.
Okay, the problem obviously with technology is that the faster you move, the more mistakes you're likely to make. So how does the Standard Digital team ensure that what is being reported really quickly is also accurate?
The best thing about Standard is convergence. When we have reporters on the field for KTN, they're the same guys who feed us with information for Standard Digital. When you have reporters for the paper, it's the same guys who feed you with information for Standard Digital. So when we have experienced, talented news news reporters on the ground. They'll give us news as it happens, even if it's just a text message, and we'll get it there on time.
Also about interactivity, I might not be interested in news. Maybe I don't want to know what's happening in politics. Is there anything for that sort of person?
Yes, there is. One of the ways that we actually drive traffic to the site, and one of the things that places it at number one, is we have, you know, extensive social media use. The Standard Digital has invested its time and talent to ensure that if you're on Facebook and you like Standard Media's page, the moment news happens, it's there. The moment we have gossip, you'll get it. And we have diversified to make sure that if you're into, you know, Straight Up has its own social media page, so you can get it there. And we've also have multimedia content. If you don't want to read, if reading is just really boring for you, even as News Desk is happening now, Standard Digital is recording it and it'll be up, so you can watch it on Standard Digital.
Okay, final question. We're seeing a lot of citizen reporting nowadays. Everyone with their iPhone, BlackBerry, taking pictures, taking videos, and uploading it on the internet. Are you sharing some of this information that's coming your way?
Yes. Standard Digital launched a citizen reporting site called YouReport. If you go to our site, on the top right corner, you'll find YouReport.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we can see pictures of that maybe in just a short while, but it's called YouReport.
It's called YouReport, where if you're somewhere and something's happening or a report is in there, just write it, even if it's 200 words. We'll go through it, we'll verify it, and we'll publish it. Also, periodically we ask guys, like during the elections, we're asking guys, where are you voting? Send us a picture of what the line looks like. Is it fast? Is it easy? Are people nice? So guys would send us pictures from as early as 3 in the morning. They were in line. And we had all the pictures and we had slides on the page. And even as we're going to have the presidential inauguration coming up, we're going to get pictures from all over Kenya. Where are you watching the inauguration from? So you can see it again on Standard Digital.
Thank you very much, Joy Chelagat. Joy Chelagat. Joy Chelagat. She's part of our digital team. And remember, www.standardmedia.co.ke has been ranked as the top most local site in the country. That's coming after all the other international sites. I think we're placed 6th in the entire Kenya, right?
In the entire Kenya, but globally we are at 5,058.
Well, we're getting there. We're number 1 in the country, so good on us. And she did mention that if you have anything with regard to what is happening this coming Tuesday, that's the inauguration, you need to start sending those pictures. And speaking of, the preparations for that swearing in of Kenya's 4th president continue today ahead of the historic event slated for the 9th of April. Now this morning, it was the turn of the media and judiciary to be taken through their paces. Our reporter Wilkis Tanyabwa was at Kasarani and now joins us from our city center studios with the latest on the presidential oath. Wilkista, we know that the media was going through some sort of training. What are some of the things that you were told about? Are there areas you're not supposed to cross? What do we know from today?
Good afternoon, Edith. Now, today it was the turn of the media to go through its paces ahead of the swearing in of Kenya's 4th president. And one of the things that the media was being taken through is simply where will they be? Where will they be allowed to stand? Where will they be allowed to really cover the event from? And this is important given that the security has been beefed up. It is the swearing in, and the police and the security, really the country security, are not taking any chances. And this, one of the issues that also came up was that the organizers had wanted to have one company just deal with, provide the cameras, cover the event, and basically provide a feed for the rest of the media. And the media eventually decided that they would partner, they would band together, and that they would give unparalleled coverage really to the event, working together as a team, which is really what we saw them doing during the presidential debates. This is one thing they have decided, but we will understand the organizers what their issues that they have brought to the fore, because there will be quite a number of journalists at the scene on the day covering the event. We will remember that not only local journalists, there will be foreign journalists, and there will also be journalists who will be coming in with dignitaries who are coming to attend the ceremony, and therefore all these people coming in together with members of the public who want to watch the event, really making it a challenge for the organizers to simply understand who will be where, who will be allowed in, who will be allowed into which parts of the Moi International Sports Center in Kasarani, and how far can one go. We also saw members of the judiciary there. We saw the registrar Gladys Sholay come in, taken through their paces, understanding what the program will be like, what the schedule is, at which point everybody comes in, where they will sit, how much time everybody has, so that the ceremony can indeed flow very smoothly. And it is this that the organizers just trying to iron out ahead of the inauguration that takes place on Tuesday.
All right, thank you very much, Wilkis Tanyabo, bringing us the very latest details from Kasarani, where the organizers of that swearing-in ceremony are making sure to cross all their T's and dot all their I's. And from that story, we take a short commercial break. When we come back, we tell you why US President Barack Obama is under fire because he chose to give back 5% of his salary. Details coming your way shortly.
Time to look at what is happening in the world of business. And remember, if you miss any of the stories that we're airing here, you can go to www.standarddigital because we are #1. Let's now take a look at what is happening in the world of business, how your money is doing in Nairobi here at the NSE. With a look at the biggest gainers of the day, Eveready is back on the winning counters. It is trading up 6.25 percentage points with a price of 2 shillings and 55 cents. Unga Group is also moving up slightly at 5.81 percentage points, going at 16 shillings and 40 cents, as the Standard Group is also up 5.63%. Really good news this week for the Standard Group, up 37 shillings and 50 cents. Safaricom is yet another counter, back on the winning counters, up 2.44 with a price of 6 shillings and 30 cents, with Sasini closing the winners for us, up 2.02%. You can get Sasini shares at 12 shillings and 65 cents. A quick look at the biggest drops of this week, and Express Limited is down 7.89%, going at 3 shillings and 50 cents. Pan Africa Insurance Holdings is also down 7.75%, going at just about 59 shillings and 50 cents. Other drops not so big though. Centum Investment down 6.12, Longhorn Kenya down 5.56, and Jubilee Holdings also down 5.02. But looking at what the market is doing, really there is nothing to worry much about. Other important indices coming from the NSE is that the all-share index currently sits in the region of 120.45, with the all-share index sliding back slightly from the 5,000 mark we witnessed. We're now doing 4,975.77 points. Well, remember, this particular indices are scrolling at the bottom of your screen, so you will get an up-to-date analysis of what is happening and how your money is working for you. But let's go to other African markets with a look at factors to watch in the African markets, courtesy of the Reuters news agency. We'll start with Nairobi, where the NSE all-share index declined, shedding 45 points to close at 0.88% lower. Now, the all-share index closed the trading at 120.45, as earlier said, with most stocks at fair valuations. Now, this does not come as a surprise to majority of the investors who are profit-taking and consequently suppressing the prices. Now, analysts at Genghis Capital saw equity turnover decline at 23%. Elsewhere, the Kenya shilling fell flat on Friday, taking a breather after 3 straight sessions of gains, while traders say it could firm further on reduced demand for dollars from companies. The shilling has gained 0.7% since April the 2nd, as investors relaxed dollar hedge positions taken before the elections. Commercial banks quoted the shilling at 84.70 buying and 84.90 selling to the dollar, the same level it closed on Thursday. Right, let's go down south, and South Africa's rand scaled to a near 3-week high against the dollar, tracking a global risk rally with weak domestic fundamentals that have recently weighed on the currency. Now, South African stocks posted a second straight session of losses on Thursday as mining stocks spiraled down in the sinking commodity prices, and global shares were stung by unexpected rise in the US weekly jobless claims. Let's go to neighboring Sudan. Sudan's annual inflation rate inched closer to the 50% mark in February, as data showed on Thursday, reflecting a deep economic crisis that has consigned most of the country's population to poverty. Come even closer home to Uganda, where officials and the UK-listed oil company Heritage Oil escalated their legal dispute over tax on Thursday, entering a war of words over who was mining where. Right, elsewhere on matters of steel, and the Nippon Steel and the Simotumo Metal Corporation got the go-ahead to start developing the Mozambican Revbok coking coal mine. Now, Japan's biggest steelmaker said on Thursday that a week after Anglo-American dropped the plans to buy a majority stake in that particular project. Elsewhere, Japan's equities soared and the yen hit the 3.5-year low against the dollar on Friday after the Bank of Japan's unprecedented monetary expansion. But Asian shares eased ahead of the U.S. jobs data amid rising concern over the American economy. Finally, let's talk about oil, and the Brent crude oil edged up $107 a barrel on Friday after hitting a 5-month low in the prior session, but the prices were headed for their worst week in a month as a bleak U.S. data and bulging investors dimmed the outlook for demand. Right, those are the factors to watch in the African markets. Now you know where your money is and where it needs to go. Let's come back to Nairobi. And preserve and safeguard of wildlife is a message that the Kenya Wildlife Service is passing to the Kenyans if tourism is to become guaranteed. Now, Kenya Wildlife Service has recently come under fire with threat of increased demand for ivory in Asian markets. KTN's Joy Doreen Bira spoke to Paul Mbugua, the spokesperson at the Kenya Wildlife Services, on the gains from wildlife and the threats to the contribution it's making to Kenya's GDP.
Kenya stands to lose a great deal. As I mentioned earlier, tourism depends heavily on wildlife. We are not ready to lose that tourism. Tourism is one of the sectors in the country that has the capacity to generate jobs, new jobs for Kenyans. Remember, our youth require employment, and the moment we have ensured that the country is attractive, is a preferred tourist destination, then visitors will come here, and for every 3 or 4 visitors additional coming to Kenya, 1 job is created. Unlike other sectors of the economy, you cannot mechanize tourism or you cannot automate tourism. Everything in tourism is labor intensive. We need to look at that and ensure that this sector is safeguarded because it has this potential of generating jobs for Kenyans, which we all look forward to.
Right, and of course that message is very important because tourism alone contributes up to 12% of GDP. Let's talk matters electronics now, and electronics giant Samsung expects a 53% jump in profit for the first 3 months of the year, buoyed by its impressive performance of its Galaxy smartphone sales. Now, currently Samsung has displaced Apple as the world's biggest smartphone maker, with analysts expecting its profits up $7.7 billion in the run-up to its introduction of its latest smartphone dubbed Galaxy S4. Elsewhere, Samsung Kenya has announced plans to set up a local assembly plant for TVs, laptops and printers as it tries to increase its market share in the East African regional market. Right, it is time to have afternoon business chat this Friday afternoon, and as you know by now, there is a housing deficit in Kenya. We have a deficit of close to 200,000 units per year. Well, majority of these people cannot afford the mortgages, and mortgages continue to be inaccessible to many. But just to help us understand why the situation is and what is the way forward, I'm now joined in studio by Pete Muraya, the Chief Executive Officer of Suraya Properties. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
Now, Pete, we're looking at a problem where majority of Kenyans can't afford decent housing. You're in the property market. You've been accused, as most people in the property market, of just focusing on the high end and those who can afford mortgages. But what's there for the rest of us?
There is a basic and a very big need for property in the lower end of the market.
Correct.
And like you said, yes, the developers have been focusing mostly on the high end.
Why is that so, by the way?
I think it's okay, there is a lot of, there's a need in every sector.
Yes.
But I think it's been easier to sell the high end, especially because a lot of more cash buyers in that sector.
Correct. It's a money back.
It's a money, yeah. But, and also because the problem is the mortgage has not been very well sold, and that has been a problem in terms of the property market.
Right. Yeah. Now, also talking to a lot of property people are saying, okay, yes, we have a lot of Kenyans who would want to own a decent home, but mortgage remains inaccessible. Are you happy with the kind of mortgage arrangement in Kenya currently?
No. I think mortgage is a big problem.
Yes.
Because if you think about the fact that the total mortgages after 50 years of independence in Kenya is only 20,000 units.
Correct.
And you're talking about, you just mentioned that there's a need of 200,000 units.
And growing.
So you can imagine that after 50 years, we only have 20,000 mortgages.
What are we not doing right?
The interest rate.
Okay.
Right. There's a study that was done by World Bank, I think in 2010. And that actually is one that announced there's only about 18 to 20,000 mortgages. And I think the challenge is that the interest rate is very high. We need to be able to have the interest rate at about 10%. I think the other challenge is that, from what I hear from the banks, is that we are trying to lend long-term borrowing on short-term money. Now, the World Bank, in their proposal, had indicated that the government should step in and set up a sort of super mortgage company, which would be owned by government plus the banks.
Right.
And then they would go out and borrow long-term funds, like 10 years, 15 years, and pass it on to the mortgages. And I think that's what needs to be done, especially by this new government. We need to create that mortgage mass. I think there's enough developers, and the developers are really working hard to be able to create the housing, because the challenge is not actually the housing so much, it's actually the funding that the buyers need to buy the houses.
And talking about mortgage and the funding, a very critical conversation here is that the young people are up to, what, 60% or even larger than that part of this population. Yet we have a lot of young people who have disposable incomes, but just the thought of investing in a plan that you pay for 20 to 25 years, and yet in this very limiting interest rate regime. My question really is, how do we get younger people to buy homes in this country?
I think the young people need to understand one thing, that you will never catch up with your rent, right? If you look at what you're paying for rent today, and you look at it 5 years down the line, it will have almost doubled, right? You need to look at it from the side of capital gains.
Yes.
Because people don't seem to understand that property business is about capital gains. When you take a mortgage of any property in the first 5 years, even up to about 7, 8 years, you're going to struggle to pay. But after that 6, 7 years, you will find that your mortgage will become so cheap compared to the rent that is in place. And secondly, you will find that you have now gained capital gains because of time.
Mariah, do we have markets where this approach that you're proposing has actually worked? Are there places we can learn from as Kenya?
I think in the developed world, I mean, if you look at how many mortgages, for example, they do in somewhere like Great Britain, they're talking about close to 1 million mortgages a year. There is a possibility. There is no, I mean, the demand is there. I think we just need to create the environment for the production of two sides, the houses, because what we need to move.
We're talking about affordable houses here.
Yeah, affordable houses. We need to move from a situation of what you might call the small developments into more larger developments. So that you're now doing houses in terms of thousands as opposed to 20s.
Which, incidentally, you're part of that business of looking at it from a broader scale. But then there are also critics who say this particular model is limiting to many people.
Well, okay, it is limiting, but I think
in terms of the capital weight you need to carry out such a project, but also are the outcome, the products really, which are the housing units, are way beyond the reach of many Kenyans.
That is correct.
Yes.
But I think that is where I think we as Suraya have come in into the market and identified that there is a serious need for housing that meets the needs and the market capability of the people. And that's why we actually introduced we have two models we introduced in the market. The first one was the Sukasa, which is basically a design that's designed to be sort of out of town, not too close to the city center. Our first project is in Mlolongo, and we're doing 1,000 units. But the whole point is that we're trying to get a unit that can sell between 1 million shillings and 3 million shillings. And we are very happy to say we have managed to be able to provide a 2-bedroom unit, very well finished, and by the way, it's not low cost. It is affordable. We have
which, before even you make that point, when the question would be, where is the catch? Because someone is saying every time you see a big billboard written get a house at 1.2 million or 2 million, there's always a catch. Either the house is too far, you cannot fit the city where you work, or where's a catch in your case? Okay, we understood that aspect. You see, because land is very expensive in Nairobi. So we understood that, and because you have to pass on the cost of land to the buyers. Yes. So we understood that, yes, to get the houses below 3 million, it's not easy when you're near town. And that's why we actually went to Mlolongo. Correct. We've now introduced a new brand called Links, which is basically the same unit in Mlolongo. But in this instance, it is within what you might call a developed area. So we have one on Bagathi Road, one in Nairobi West, and now one on Gong Road. How much is the cost different from moving it from Lolongo to Mbagathi?
Tremendous, actually. Yes. Because what happens is, when you come to Nairobi, because in the nearer the city center, because the land is more expensive, number one. Number two, you're now doing a high-rise building, which is 7, 8 floors. You need lifts, you need generators. So there's a bit of additional costs that you must have. The parking must be underground. That's an additional cost of basement. Yes. Because there's no space. While in Mlolongo, I can give you open parking, and therefore it doesn't cost as much. Right. But in terms of price difference, just to give you an idea, it's almost double. Because the 900,000 unit in Sukasa is 1.8 million at Mbagathi Road. The 3 million house in Mombasa Road, 2-bedroom, is 4.5 million in Mbagathi. So
there's that difference for bringing it closer to the people.
There's a huge difference, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right, and still on that, an issue that has come in the print media recently has been the relationship between rent and property developers. People who are investing in property for rent and the relationship with property developers. I understand some have even gone to court. But going forward, what would be the ideal situation in ensuring that issues of service charge don't overrun the intent of actually making money from rent?
Yeah, it's a big issue. And you see, the problem is that service charge is necessary. Yes. Because you want the garbage collected, you want security in your house.
Which is, especially in your kind of investment, you're dealing large
in any kind of investment.
Yes.
Whether you're doing 10 houses, I think it's important to have your, because city council doesn't produce this facility. At the same time, security is an issue. I think the challenge is making sure that it's not punitive. And what we've done as Suraya is we've actually created a system where we are working with an insurance company, and we don't charge you service charge for 10 years, right? So when you buy the house, even at that 3 million, we will provide those services throughout 10 years at no cost.
But throughout 10 years, even if I'm paying 5,000 bob, at the end of the 10 years, that amount is
no, you didn't get
equivalent to get another unit.
You will not pay anything for 5 years, for 10 years. That's the difference. We've created a system that enables us in our projects, that once you buy in any of our projects, you do not actually pay service charge. But we still provide you with the same services that you'd have gotten for the next 10 years.
Great. Mariah, another critical question here. You're dealing with larger scale property and projects. We have the situation of slums in the area. Slum upgrading, of course, has come under very serious criticism. What is the way forward as a property developer in regards to dealing with slums in the city?
I think, in my opinion, the solution is you need to design houses that make sense to the slum upgrading. I feel whatever you're trying to do, if you can't take a person from a 5 square meter house and go and try and make him live in a 35, 40 square meter house and start charging him electricity, start charging him for water, and expect him to live in that house. It can't work. It has to be able to design a unit that is close to what he's used to and make it also cost effective for him, because it's not going to work. It has never worked anywhere where you move guys from slums, give them houses and expect them to maintain the houses. They can't.
All right. Yeah. Always when you talk about real estate, there's the issue of location. You talk about Sukasa, you've talked about Links, all these are in Nairobi. We are now moving into county governments. Our governors have been sworn in. What are the plans to ensure that not just from you, but entirely players in this sector, that this is replicated in other counties, incentivizing? Because why would I want to move to Bungoma if there's no proper housing?
There is a need for it. Yes. I don't know what the government is planning to do.
What is Suraya planning?
Suraya is planning to be in the counties. Yes. We want to take the same brands that we are doing to the counties, and we plan that by the end of the year we should be in some counties, and we want to go to all counties. And the idea is that if we're able to give that same person in Bungoma a house for 800,000, he can afford to buy it.
Yes.
So we still want to produce a unit that can sell within the counties, and we are working on modules that can work in the counties.
Right, final question in less than a minute. Whenever we see or hear about large projects, let's talk about Suraya, let's talk about Tatu City and whatnot, there is always a tussle in regards to land ownership, the buying and the selling and whatnot. What is this challenge that we're having in our land system that hinders property development? Because that challenge always comes, we'll always hear there's a battle whenever we have a huge project coming up. Talk of Tatu City even.
I think it's there is two issues. One, sometimes it's not the fact that the government needs to actually computerize their system.
Yes.
I think that's the key, number one, because then you can be able to verify quite quickly that you own the land that you say you do.
Right.
Because a lot of times you find that the title that you have is not the correct title.
Yes.
And by the time maybe you find out there's a problem.
Correct.
So if the government actually computerizes that, it would really help in that sense. The other one sometimes is not really controllable, because you could get into a partnership with somebody, and because land value appreciates quite fast, you had agreed that today it's at about 100,000. By the time the project gets off the ground 2 years later, it's 200,000. And the person starts feeling like you cheated him, because now you're talking about 200,000, but you had signed at 100,000. So I think that's really the challenge in terms of Tatu City and others like that.
All right.
Yeah.
Pete Muraya, CEO Suraya Properties, many thanks. I'd like to have this conversation on and on, but we have to cut it there. Many thanks for dropping by the news desk.
Thank you very much for having me.
And for just breaking it down to us. And now you do know it is possible for young people to go for properties. All you need to know is know where to look for. Right, that has been the afternoon business chat. We'll take a short commercial break to pay the bills, but coming up is the world in pictures.